You are listening to the City Vent, proudly sponsored by the Westview Motor Company, supplying your new and used cars. Find us at westviewmotorcompany.co.uk.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 20. I think it's 20, isn't it? We're going to go with
20. The big 20, mate.
We're going to go with 20. Should be 30, shouldn't it really? But we'll go into that in a minute. Welcome to episode 20 of the City Event. My name's Adam, and I'm with my co-host Chris.
How are we doing, mate? Are we good?
Good, very good, thank you. Monday evening, the cold is setting in, but we're okay, we're happy. Special episode today. We've got a few fans joining us. We're going to have a bit of debate on all things Bradford City, so we'll get them in a moment. Structure of today is just going to be going through some points that they don't know about and just getting some honest opinion on it, because obviously week in, week out, me and Chris sit here and we'll tell you what we think, and we don't always agree, obviously, but we'll say what we think. But we wanted to get actual fans from Twitter on as well who have different opinions. We had about 8 guests set up, but a few have dropped out for various reasons. But we have got 3 fantastic people with us, so I'll let Chris introduce them and get them added now.
Well, I will do that in a second. But yeah, I want to just reinforce what you just said as well, is that, you know, we just have our own views on the football game. For instance, look at Chapman on Saturday. That was always a big talking point. A lot of people said that they thought he was terrible. I thought he was played really well. So it's just nice to be able to have some City fans come in and be able to air their views and tell us what we are doing wrong or whatever. But anyway, I'm just going to add them now. So Labib, how are you doing, mate?
Hey, lads, you all right? I'm all good, thank you.
All good, mate. And James, how are you, mate?
Hey, boys. All good, thank you.
There we go. The tech issues have already started, but we'll be able to rock and roll, don't worry.
And Dan, how are we doing, mate?
Yeah, nice one, lads. I hope you can hear me.
Do you know what? Before we recorded this, we've with Dan, and he's the connection wasn't great, but that was perfect, mate. But yeah,
Right.
welcome on in, chaps. Welcome on in.
Nice one.
Yes.
Good work.
So, we're going to
Enjoying your work, lads.
What's that? Sorry.
Enjoying your work at the City Vent.
I'm like an old man leaning in, like you're not even in the same room as me. But yeah, thank you, mate. It's very kind of you. Cheers for that.
Cheers, pal.
So, first of all, I think the first thing we need to speak about, because we are obviously the week after the Grimsby game, is what happened there. We know that Labib was actually at the game, so if you can share your thoughts, mate, to start with. And fire away.
Yeah. I was chatting to a couple of lads in the stands, which was packed out, by the way. And I said before the game, we'll do well to come away with a point. Game started, first 10, 15 minutes, I thought we were brilliant. Actually just controlled it. Grimsby didn't get a look in. And then we kind of did what we've done all season, really. We kind of lose that momentum and that energy, and the other team kind of come back into it. And I think we really struggled to get a foothold. I think our midfield kind of struggled to get possession, to keep possession. Defended well. I think back four were all solid, really. I think Halliday got a lot of compliments on Twitter. Falls was as steady as he has been the last few weeks. Platt, Critchlow, again, solid. A couple of scares. Their lad smashed it against the post, I think. So half-time, a little bit lucky to go in 0-0. Second half, I'd say we were probably the second best side. Really struggled to get a foothold in the game, and like I said, I think we lost it in the middle of the park. But at the end, it was good to come away with a point, I think. 0-0, to be fair, I thought it was quite an entertaining game.
Can I ask you a question, mate? So I watched it from home, a bit unwell, and I meant to be out actually on the beers, but I was at home unwell watching it. Now, the way that I saw it, there were two. I think there were 2 clear-cut chances in the first half for us, and maybe one in the second. So you had your Chapman through on goal. I saw that as a clear-cut, really, because he probably should have shot before he took the extra touch. Yeah. And Andy Cook, I'm sure Andy Cook had a really good chance in the box, and I think he hit it against a defender or something.
To be fair, that was at the opposite end to where we were in the first half, so it was difficult for me to get a clear view of it. It did look like there were clear-cut chances from where I was. I've not seen any of the highlights. I've not watched any of that back yet. But yeah, I don't know whether they were clear chances or kind of half chances.
Well, the Dion Pereira one was at your end.
It was,
People
yeah.
have highlighted that, and it's
Yeah.
one chance maybe that he's had all season. He's missed it, but should he be scoring from there?
I think he should have, yeah. And to be fair, the Grimsby lad, I think almost on the stroke of half time, had an open goal at that end and blazed it high and wide. So that should have gone in. But Dion should have been scoring. Just reading through some of the tweets, and a couple of lads were convinced he was flagged offside anyway for that particular chance. I didn't see it. I wasn't watching the line. I was just watching Dion. But yeah, definitely that should have been in.
We'll bring the other boys in a minute on this one and what their opinions were if they watched the game. But because you were there, what was the atmosphere like? Because we've had quite a few good atmospheres over the last sort of couple of weeks, and it's just this season every Saturday's sold out, and everybody seems. What was the atmosphere like in the crowd?
It was pretty good. I'd probably say Salford was better. Salford was almost like non-stop singing from start right through to the very end. But I think it's a bit of a reflection of the game because it was so absorbing that a lot of people were just watching the game as opposed to kind of singing and chanting.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, there was lots of noise, and I said it was just absolutely packed. I was sat behind the goal, and the concourse where it should have been clear, it was just packed with people standing because I don't know what had gone wrong, whether they weren't. It wasn't sitting in allocated seats; it was just sit where you want. I think that just caused a bit of a problem. But there were loads and loads of people just standing in the aisles, and the concourse is absolutely packed out. But generally, I'd say it was a good atmosphere.
Yeah, it just feels a bit different, doesn't it, this season, guys? I don't know what you boys think, but for me, nearly every game, Tranmere away, we're Tuesday night, and we're absolutely bouncing, and it's good to see. Is it because the football's better? We've got a team that can actually go and win games and fight to the death to try and win games. Is that the difference? I mean, I'll open the question up to everybody. Anybody who wants to speak on it, feel free.
I mean, I completely agree with that, Adam. I think that, the fact that literally is impossible for anybody who doesn't have the loyalty points to get to a game this year. I mean, we're looking already, I think, even with the Sutton game, that the ticket's going to sell out. It's crazy. It's absolutely mad. But I think it's just that fans are starting to enjoy the football again. And I mean, obviously, I'll ask James and Dan as well in a second, but it just feels like the football that we're playing, it's quite enjoyable, but we're starting to enjoy it again. Dan, I'll ask you first, mate. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think in general, there's a real optimism in the stands. Like, we're going to games, we're going to like your Grimsby's, and we're almost expecting, the team's going to win. And I think that's a positive thing because you look at the quality we've got, you look at the bench, we've got people who can change games. And, been to a lot of this season's games, and we start games well. And, on a lot of these games, we've taken early goals, which has been great. And what we haven't been able to do so far is like kick on from there. So I think at Grimsby, we started really well. But what we didn't do is then follow it up, and we didn't get that goal. And we kind of just faded a little bit. We faded. And, I'd have liked to have seen another striker being brought on and really pushed for that winner. But in general, it's a little bit scary, the fact that our keeper was our man of the match. But let's face it, Grimsby are a good side. And if we follow it up tomorrow night with a win, then it's going to be a really good point.
That's a good point. And you look at the games, Salford, Grimsby and Swindon, you take 7 points from that. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fairness, 4 points from the two games we've already had is a good result. So we get 3 points tomorrow night, and it's fantastic, isn't it? And I think what I mentioned the other day to somebody is that we seem to be playing teams that are in form and getting results. Seasons gone by, we'd play these teams and we'd end up getting beat. If that were a Derek Adams team on Saturday, and I hate to go back to this point, we'd have capitulated and we'd have lost the game. 100%. No doubt in my mind. And I think we are more solid defensively as well as actually being offensively so much better. Just the whole spine of the team's better all the way through. James, I'll come to you as well on that one, mate. What are your thoughts on Grimsby and that sort of side of things at the minute?
I think from a fan's perspective, it's quite inspiring to see the level of endeavour and
We've lost you, mate. We'll let you get back in. But the level of endeavour was a good way to start that sentence, because I think it's
Can I
absolutely.
just jump in, lads?
Yeah, you can.
I think, again, what you got to remember is Grimsby are in great form. You know, they've just beaten a couple of big teams. So I think, you know, we're always disappointed when we don't win as City fans. And I think there's that kind of expectation that we should go to Grimsby and win. But I think it's a really good point. And, you know, one thing I did like as well was Mark Hughes came on and he was disappointed. If you listen to his interviews, he was disappointed that we didn't do better. So I think there's you know, you can tell in the dressing room, he'd be like, yeah, good point, but we probably should have won that game. And the way we started it, I thought we were going to win.
He wants to win every game, doesn't he, mate? And you can see that
Yeah.
towards the end of the Grimsby game, both teams were going at it. It wasn't us sitting back and letting them, you know, press us. We wanted to win the game as well. And I know we changed the shape and we took Cook off and put more midfielders on, but that actually, in my opinion, changed the game for the better. I don't know what you guys think, but that's what my thoughts are.
I mean, like, I get where you're coming from, Adam, but I mean, to be honest with you, for me, taking Cook off, I think it was Ryan East who came on. I would have rather seen Verdane up there. I think that the play that we were, the things that we were doing was looking like it was kind of Verdane's kind of game. I completely agree with you as well, Dan, is that Grimsby have been phenomenal recently. They're, again, one of those teams that nobody's talking about and they're starting to climb up the league. I was on the podcast for Grimsby Town last week and they're buzzing at the minute, properly buzzing. And I said I would be more than happy with getting a draw at Blundell Park. And we got that. I mean, obviously, you're slightly disappointed. There was obviously the Chapman chance that hit the post. Should we have, for me, I just didn't feel in the final third we were anywhere near good enough. I think that cost us. What do you guys think? Labib, I'll ask you, mate.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think it's a little bit reflective of the last few games. I think, and there's lots of talking points behind that. You know, formation, lone striker. Do we need two lads up front? All that kind of stuff. But against Grimsby, I think, as I said, we lost it in that middle of the park, really. Not getting enough possession and not picking up the loose balls in order then to feed your front men. But yeah, I definitely agree. We just didn't create enough to win it. I think Grimsby probably counted themselves a little bit unlucky not to have won it. They probably had the clearer cut chances. But as I said, and as Dan was saying, I think it would be a good point if we can win tomorrow night. Really need to build on it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll see what happens, won't we, tomorrow? And we're going to go for it again, aren't we? Every home game, we've gone for it. We're attacking teams at home and we want to win the game. So we'll move on from that one then. And we'll move on to the game.
The point I'll just make, sorry, just to finish off on that one, is at the full-time whistle. So obviously we had that free kick, didn't we, right at the death?
Oh, yeah.
And launched it into the box. And I think it was it Gilead it fell to? It was just about to kind of pull the trigger on it.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and referee blows for full time. And you mentioned Mark Hughes earlier, and he came on and went straight to the referee. And that was his main point. It wasn't to come over initially to acknowledge the crowd and to thank his players. He went and had a pop at the ref.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Labib. That was exactly what happened. Gilead's got the ball in the box. He's open. And then the referee blows for full time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I picked up on that was... It was really odd, but I think if you watch the replay, the keeper goes down. So the corner comes in or the free kick comes in, we head it back across. There's a foul on their keeper or for whatever reason, their keeper ends up on the floor. And I think the referee has just thought, right, in the game before, you know, I have to give a yellow card. It was a real strange one to play.
Yeah. We just lost you a little bit there, but yeah, you're absolutely bang on. It maybe that was the issue, but it's just not good reffing, is it? You've got to, you know, play to the whistle, I guess, and the game's got to flow natural, and you've got to play the minutes that you've got, you know, available. But I think the issue that we've seen it before, where I think it was Accrington once upon a time, where they actually scored a goal, and as the ball was hitting the net, it actually blew the whistle, and I think is it happening too often? Reffing this season, let's be honest, it's been absolutely appalling. It really has.
Perhaps before your time, I think it was 1978 World Cup.
Bloody hell, you're showing your age there, Labib, mate.
Well, before my time, mate.
There was a famous English referee called Clive Thomas, and he was refereeing, I think, something like Brazil versus Sweden or something like that, one of the group matches. And it's coming up to half time. Brazil take a corner. Whilst the ball's in mid-flight, referee blows for half time. Of course, I think it was Brazilian lad comes in, thumps a header in the back of the net. They're off celebrating.
Yeah.
And of course, he's ruled it out. And I still remember that. And it's not often you see that. Because in this day and age, you let that momentum of play fizzle out, don't you?
Of course you do.
And then either the ball goes dead or it goes back to the halfway line and then you blow. But whilst that momentum is with the attacking side, you let that play work out until you blow.
You do. It was a strange one. It really was. Just before we move on, we've got another guest that's just joined us. He's come back from his run by the looks of it. You right, Ben?
Not too bad. Not a run. But yeah, no, I've been skiing in the Lucy, skiing in Castleford. So yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Good old escape.
Yeah.
All right. I thought there was some sort of mountain district that I didn't know about.
No, Baildon Moor's nice, but not quite where you can go skiing. Not this time of year, anyway.
No worries, mate. Well, welcome anyway. Thank you. We've started a little bit. You've not missed too much, but we are just about to go on to on the pitch this season. Players that have stood out to us, and I'll come straight to you unless you want to get warmed up first. It's up to you, mate. But players that have stood out to you, who's been the key players for Bradford City this season?
I'd say that's quite a tough question, actually, because I think, really, I don't think there's been a massive standout performer, really. I'm going to sound quite controversial here and start almost with a negative.
That's what we want, Ben. That's what we're looking for, mate.
Because I think, well, the two obvious ones that most people would point to would be Lewis and Cook, wouldn't they? I think that's what, if you ask most people, they would say. I would say Andy Cook has been brilliant in the box, but I've got a sort of an unpopular view where I think we would have more points if Vadine Oliver or Angol had played up front. I don't think either of them would have scored as many goals as Cook, but I think as a collective, the team would have scored more goals, is my view. So my standout player would be Lewis.
Right, where's the mute button again? Let me just find that. I'm joking. No, I see what you're saying on Andy Cook, and I got slated for this at the end of last season because all I used to say was one-dimensional player. He offers nothing, and then he went and scored, 30 goals, whatever he's on this season. I would like to stick up for him a little bit because
a little bit. Hold on.
Listen, wait, no, let me continue. Wait your turn, sunshine. He's not getting many chances. He's not getting many chances and he's converting a lot of them when you look at the stats.
No, and the thing is, what I'd say is, can I be clear? He does the hardest part of football better than anyone. So if you're saying to me, who would I rather be put through one-on-one out of Cook, Vadine Oliver and Angol? Andy Cook every time. But I think he doesn't truly fit Hughes's style of play. So in terms of, we talk about Chapman looks a bit up and down. Pereira, who's been disappointing since he's come back. The three behind, I think, would do much better if it was Vadine Oliver or Angol because they link the play. Cook, in the nice way, is poor at everything except the hardest part of the game.
But he's Ben. I'll bring this to you. Is that not a striker's role?
No, and can I be? No, and this is the thing. I know what I'm saying is going to sound like I'm deliberately being difficult or trying to find a negative. I assure you, I totally accept Vadine Oliver would not have scored as many goals as Andy Cook this season. Totally accept that. Lee Angol would not have scored as many goals as Andy Cook. But as a team, I feel we would possibly have scored more goals because those two players link the play up. People often moan at, in the games that we've struggled in, well, we don't create enough chances. When we get to the final third, we're predictable. Well, my honest view is we're predictable because Andy Cook doesn't contribute other than in the 18-yard box.
But that's what he's paid to do, isn't he?
And I agree. I totally agree. I'm just being honest and saying the team would have scored more, in my view.
it's good that you're being honest, but you're completely wrong. No, what I would say is that Andy Cook's movement in the box this season has been absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah,
The
I'd
goal
agree.
that he scored, fantastic. And
Yeah,
you're playing to strengths. We're getting the balls into the box, and every chance he's got is converted. So I disagree with you. And the fact that I will disagree with you is the games that he's not played, like in the cup, we've been absolutely shite up front, and we've not scored, and the movement's not been on point. So what's happened there then, if that is the case?
but has that not been because it's the reserve team that plays in those games?
Come on, look at that team. Look at the quality in it. You know that we talk about the depth in the squad and things like that, but it's not like these teams of old that we've seen in the Pizza
Oh
Cup.
no, and I'd agree with you there. But what I mean is when Verdine Oliver plays up front in the cup games, it's Levi Sutton delivering it from wide right. It's not Scott Banks, or it's not. You know, our second 11 is very, you know, is definitely better than the Derek Adams
It
first.
was Scott Banks on Tuesday against Burton, though, wasn't it?
Against opposition in the league above.
Yeah, but you've got Young and Banks there, both.
Yeah.
Again, you might call them first teamers potentially on the periphery.
Oh, and I would, but I think we've picked one game there, haven't we? I think you look at, like, for example, the team that played against Leicester, where Oliver scored. But again, there, you know, you're playing against a bunch of kids. You can't truly judge against that, can you? But you look at, you know,
he should be bullying him, shouldn't he? If he's playing against even less opposition.
Well, yeah, but he scored, didn't he? But that was with not the same quality of players playing in the midfield.
Bring in Labib. Labib, bless you. You've been sat there. What do you think about this?
I've got a couple of points to make on it. The first one is the formation that we play, right, with the 4-2-3-1. And if you've got a lone striker, for me, getting balls into the box or creating those goal-scoring chances, you want somebody who can finish. It's as simple as that, really. The fewer chances you get, the more important and the more critical they are that they get converted. And Cook's been doing that. So in terms of putting chances away, I don't think he can be faulted. In terms of playing in that kind of formation, he's got a lot more kind of running and harrying and kind of backtracking to do. And I think he's been doing that. The two Grimsby centre halves, I think, handled him really well on Saturday. Both big physical lads. And they didn't give him much, really. So he's always going to struggle against two big lads like that, which is why I think a lot of people often talk about having two strikers up front when you play against a kind of solid setup like that.
On your point, Labib, as well, I think we're losing sight of the fact that the first game of the season, Verdane Oliver was our number one striker. He was the man that Mark Hughes, I don't know if you're going to disagree with me on that, but I'm totally convinced he was. We brought him in. He was on a 3 or 4 year deal, I think, and he was meant to be the main man. But Cook has been undroppable. How can you drop him? That is the problem, I guess, that Mark Hughes is faced with. Maybe Ben is right, and maybe would be better with, you know, the people in the squad and things like that. But how can you drop, you know, one of the top scorers in England? That is the problem.
Well, you can't. I don't think.
You can't.
Goals win your games, don't they? It's as simple as that. And Cook scoring goals. So you're absolutely right. He is undroppable, I think, at the moment. The question is, do we play somebody else alongside him? I think. In order to increase those kind of goal scoring chances. One thing I mentioned the other day is for several years now, we've always talked about our midfield not scoring enough. We haven't had enough contributions from the middle of the park. Early this season, it was looking quite promising. You had people like Young, people like Banks chipping in with the odd goal. And early doors, it looked like we were going to get a collective number of people scoring. That seems to have dropped off recently. And again, we're back to almost relying upon Cook again to put those chances away. So going back to what Ben was saying, as a collective unit, I think we need to be contributing more in terms of goals, not just relying upon Andy Cook.
Labiba, I think that's a really important point and something that maybe we haven't really talked about much. I was looking at, for instance, when we played Salford, and I think, were they higher than us in the league, whatever. Their team had so many goals between the players. There was nobody who was running away with scoring the goals. And I think that's a really important point that you've made there, that, you know, we had Smallwood at the beginning where obviously scored that cracker of a goal. Is it is the problem that we just do not score goals from other players? Is that the problem?
The problem is that they tit about with it too much at the edge of the box and try and do too much with ball. And we've seen that over every season. Nobody's got the cojones to have a shot. And well, the one player that has, that I cannot wait to have back in this team, because I feel like he is the missing jigsaw piece. I'll come to you on this one. Jamie Walker. Jamie Walker is levels above him, and when he plays, I just feel like this team works so much better. I do like Harry Chapman, and obviously that is it's in his position, in it. It's one of the others, one of the two. I'm getting words out, teeth back in. Yeah, so I do think we're missing Jamie Walker. So I'll come to Dan on this one if you want to share your thoughts on that one. Am I wrong? Is he the missing?
I don't think. I think Chapman's played really well this season. I think, is he better than Jamie Walker? Possibly not. I think my take on it is Mark Hughes is desperate for Pereira to find form, and he's given him every opportunity to play himself into form. And let's face it hasn't happened yet. It just hasn't worked for him. And do you know what? Last season when he came on loan, didn't he? And he was injured before we even saw him for like the first 2 months. And he got a whole lot of stick, didn't he? And everyone wanted him to go back and no one wanted him. And it was like, what a waste of a wage, this, that, and the other. And then he hit the ground running and he was awesome, wasn't he? Last season at the end. And we obviously, when he came back this time, it was, that first game when he came back, it was like we'd signed Alan Shearer or something. It was like, everyone was absolutely buzzing. And I just wonder if he's struggling a little bit with the expectation. He's clearly a class player. He's good technically, but I think he's struggling because of the expectation. And I think Jamie Walker will add a lot to this team. But I think, we can't afford to carry people, certainly the way Hughes plays with one up front. And I think Pereira has to get dropped now. And I think that's, I'd like to see tomorrow, I'd like to see Banks back in because I think he offers us something. He gives us good go forward and he's got a goal in him. He likes to cut in and shoot. So, but I agree with the guys just come on. I think there's a really good player in Oliver. I think he's class act and I think his time will come, but you can't drop Cookie because he's scoring.
Dan, I want to bring you back, take you back a little bit. So we talk about Dion Pereira, for instance. Do you think that the fact that the team has obviously changed? I mean, obviously there was 16 new players in the summer. Do you think that has been? Is it a case of he was the best of a bad bunch last season and he struggles this season?
Not for me. No, I hear what you're saying, and we've said it before. He was a standout player in a bad bunch, but he's been so off it this year. He's half the player he was. He can't keep the ball. Nothing's working for him. And as I say, I think he's given him good 4 or 5 games, and I think it's time now to say, do you know what? I think we need to change it. And I think he's just out of form. And it's strange because Watford pre-season he seemed to be doing well.
Do you not think
Luton? Sorry.
Do you not think he had glimpses? Because I actually do on Saturday. I thought he showed little bits, like maybe he's finding a little bit of form. That was my opinion on it. I know he missed that howler of an opportunity. And possibly a good defending he got across him, but he's got to be scoring there. But I do think in the first half he showed glimpses of what he could do. And I think the problem is part of what Chris said. I don't feel like he's getting enough of the ball because he's not that main star anymore in the squad. There's a lot more better players around him. So they're not just giving it to him all the time. Because last season, it would get it to Dion, let's be honest. And he just ran at players, didn't he, because he could, and he got away with it. Is that part of the problem, or is it just that he's just not good enough this season? He's not finding any form. Again, Labib, Ben, jumping on that one.
Yeah, personally, I think it's form. It's, to kind of a bit of a cliche, players don't turn bad overnight. So I don't think it's down to him as his technical ability as a player. I think it is down to a little bit of expectation, a bit of pressure, which he didn't have last year because nobody knew him. And if you remember, I think the first time he played, he looked a little bit like he was lacking fitness. but that got better and better towards the end of the season. And by the end of the season, he was like a superstar, wasn't he? Beating players for fun, almost like watching Peter Beagley again on the wing.
Unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like
easy.
inside out. But it's and I agree with you, Adam. I think there were a couple of glimpses like that on Saturday. He was looking to take a player on and beat them. So it might get his last chance tomorrow night, maybe see that form. I'd love to see him obviously back to where he was, but he's lucky to get a starting berth, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's nice, isn't it, to have that problem where you've got these good players that are behind him, rather than thinking we've just got to stick with Dion because there's nothing better, like the Joe Colbeck days or whatever. Let's not go into that one just yet. But I mean, you've got good players behind him, so that's why we're saying drop him. And I guess it doesn't always work, does it? It's the fans crying out, get another player on, there's going to be better behind him. And 9 times out of 10, that doesn't work, barring maybe Matty Folds and Wright this season. But Ben, I'll come to you on that one as well, see what your thoughts are on Dion.
I just think it's a lack of form, and players at this level go through that type of spell. I think as well, maybe he's putting a bit of extra pressure on himself, like you sort of alluded to. Suddenly now he's gone from last time round, he was the undisputed best wide player. Now he's at training or looking over at the bench. There's Tyreek Wright, there's Scott Banks. You know, he's definitely not guaranteed a spot, is he? Whereas, let's be honest, this time last season, if he had a run of games like these last few, you'd still be saying persist with him, wouldn't you? Whereas now there's a genuine question where if he was to be dropped, no one would moan, would they? Because ultimately we'd be bringing quality in.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. I just want to bring one last point up on the players before we move on to the next subject. And I know you mentioned him, and I've got to mention him again because he's just absolutely fantastic. I love the bones of him. I wish he were not my dad because he'd be too young, but Harry Lewis. I mean, come on. This season, the amount of points that he has saved us, I would suggest that it's 12, maybe 15 points because he's just unbelievable. Is he going to be here in January? Is somebody going to come in for him? Is it going to be here? I think he loves it at City. I absolutely think he adores playing here, and his mum goes to every game, I think, and she goes to North Parade as well, I believe, before every game, home game.
I need to find that out.
Well, yeah, she's just, I mean, not she. He is just phenomenal. His distribution, I just don't think that you find that at this level. His shot stopping as well. Every part of his play is brilliant. It commands the back four. Can anybody disagree with me that Lewis is unbelievable?
No. Absolutely not. And I think that that's something that we've been looking for in a goalkeeper for a long time. Bradford City, there you go, with his mug. So if anyone who's listening on the pod, Adam just lifted up his glass. His mug even, sorry. No, I think that this is one thing that we were always kind of in the 90s. We always had really good goalkeepers. We had Schwarzer, we had Walsh, we had Matt Clark. I think there was, I can't remember what the New Zealander goalkeeper was called, but I think what he does is that he's too good for this league. He's far too good for this league. I was watching the game with one of my mates on Saturday, and he was like, who is this guy? He's incredible. I was like, honestly, his distribution as well, level. I genuinely believe that it's the best we've had for...
Since Pickford.
Yeah, I would genuinely go for that. I would say Pickford. What do you guys think?
I definitely agree. Yeah, I've not much to add other than I think you're absolutely spot on. Apart from his technical ability as a player, I think his own kind of buy-in, if you like, to the club is just brilliant to see.
He just gets it, doesn't he? He just gets
it. I think there was a picture of him a couple of weeks ago at a Bradford Bulls game. Sort of taking it all in, and I think he just loves being part of the club, part of the setup, and really as a fan, that's what you want to see, isn't it? Is players who are bought into the whole kind of experience. So yeah, it's just phenomenal, really. And if he does leave, which a lot of people are suggesting that if we don't do anything this year, obviously you just want to see the best for him, really. But yeah, fantastic.
You don't get it these days, do you? Players that want to buy into the club. And I guess, is that Bradford because of the city that it is? Nobody wants to live in the city. There's two players that obviously, Jamie Walker, he lives locally as well. Colin Doyle, I think, Don't know about the rest. Matty Folds, obviously, but I don't know about the rest. They'll probably live in Leeds, won't they, and things like that. And Harry Lewis probably does, but he goes to these events, doesn't he? He cuts the ribbons and he gets involved. And I think Chris will go on to the women's game as well about Harry Lewis and his involvement there.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. Ben.
What's nice is that he seems to have embraced wearing the shirt. You know, we've spoken historically about like a lot of players that come from these bigger clubs find wearing the shirt heavy. So like you go to say someone, maybe a daft comparison, but Joe Riley comes from having captained Man United under 18s or whatever it was, couldn't cope. He comes, he sees the cop absolutely bouncing. He loves it. He wants that pressure. He wants to be a part of it, where sometimes these young lads that we get from these, you know, attractive named clubs just can't handle it. He's been, you know, a rare example of the total opposite. He looks like he's been an experienced number one, not his first real stint of men's first team football.
And let's not forget, we did the total Bradford City thing of writing him off as well when we signed him. It was like, who's this guy? What we're signing this guy for? And he's the best signing in the summer, isn't he? He's unbelievable. So
without doubt.
But if you think back to his first press conference, though, Adam, he spoke so bloody well. I remember, you know, when we signed him, we said, "Who the hell is he?" I talked to a couple of my Southampton mates. They went, "Don't really know much about him." Mark Hughes obviously saw something in him, which no other club have seen. He just obviously was hidden away, but I tell you what, the guy is honestly, he's just embracing it. By the way, the New Zealand goalkeeper I was trying to think of was Mark Paston, if anyone remembers him.
Wow. Yeah.
That was. I'm like, you know, he was a good goalkeeper. But the one thing I do want to mention is that he's really involved with the women's game. I went down to watch the Bradford women's game against Leeds United at Bradford Park Avenue a couple of weeks ago. He was there. He goes to every game. This is his Sunday. Do you know? And he's so passionate about football and the city itself as well, and supporting and doing whatever he can do. And these are things that nobody really ever mentions or knows about. And I think that just shows you, Labib, I'm going to ask you, shows you what kind of a character he is, right?
Absolutely. I mean, like virtually every game, I think he normally kind of runs over to the away end in particular and sort of hands his gloves over to one of the younger supporters. I think on Saturday he ran over, hugged his mum. You know, he's just brilliant to watch. You know, absolutely. You know, that's the sort of character that you want as part of the club. You want somebody who's got that passion, that energy, that 100% kind of commitment to it all. As I said, not even talking about his technical ability. I don't think that's under any question as a goalkeeper. One thing I did notice was his kicking and his distribution that people have mentioned. And, you know, it very rarely ends up in touch. It's always in play, you know. Obviously, doesn't always find his man, but his accuracy in terms of distribution is just brilliant.
Can I just add to that?
Yes, Dan.
I mean, clearly Harry Lewis is on his way, you know, onto bigger and better things, depending on how our season goes in the next couple of years. But as I say, his distribution, he could be a centre midfielder, couldn't he? He's both feet. He's very, very solid. One thing I did pick up on when I first saw him in his first game, I did notice he's not the biggest of goalkeepers. And I wonder if, you know, Championship, Premier League clubs have looked at him thinking he's not big enough, which is borderline ridiculous on the way, you know, some of the saves he's making are world class, really good. But he's not the biggest lad. But his distribution it's unbelievable. It's really good. And it just gets us on the front foot quickly.
It does. Now, I'm sick of this loving, so we're going to move on from the players. We need some falling out here. This is not good, is it? It's not good. It is. But no, it is, because nobody in our supporters can dispute that he is just incredible. So we're going to move on from that. So the next thing we're going to speak about is the ownership at Bradford City, because obviously this is a big talking point and people have sort of kind of forgotten about it. We've seen a supporters group set up very recently over probably the badge coming out and things like that. So me and Chris have spoke about this plenty of times and our views of the ownership and Ryan Sparks and things like that. But I just want to see what you guys think individually. So I'll come to Dan first and I'll move on to you guys as well. So Dan, what are your thoughts about the ownership at Bradford City?
I mean, clearly it's well documented. But actually, my personal view is you can't really knock what the German guy, I can't remember his name, but what he's done for this club, because he has put his hand in his pocket and spent an absolute fortune on with no return whatsoever. You know, you get no guarantees with a football club. And I think, yeah, he's not a football guy. He's a businessman. But for what he's done, you know, he's brought in Mark Hughes. That can't have been a cheap appointment. And he's backed him. And he's backed him with putting his money in his pocket. And you know, again, we're going for it. We're going for a promotion. So, yeah, I think we're in good shape at the moment. I can't complain.
And what are your thoughts on Ryan Sparks and how he's running the club? Are you sort of in agreement with how he's doing things? Are you enjoying the ride? What are your thoughts on that one, mate?
Yeah,
Ben's smiling and laughing.
I know. I'm smiling myself because I could just see what Ben's laughing.
He's dying to say something. He's like, "Let me speak." You'll wait your turn, sir. So, Dan, carry on, mate.
To be fair, I think you can't knock what Sparks is doing. You know, young CEO. Again, commercially, the club seems to be in a different world. I think we brought in some really shrewd business, you know, and people seem to like working for him. So it seems to be working at the moment. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to tempt fate, but on and off the field, we seem to have got it right this season. It just feels different. And I think, you know, you can tell on a match day when you go, people are buzzing to be there. I mean, how many times have you gone there and the atmosphere is dreadful? You know, it's quite negative, you know, the booing and all that. I think at the moment we're on a really positive vibe and we're going for it. So, yeah, no complaints from me.
Thank you, Dan. I'm going to move on to Ben in a minute, but just on this particular subject, guys, resist the temptation to speak about the badge for now, because we are going to move on to that afterwards and we'll speak about that completely separately. Dan, before we move on to Ben, you don't sound like a Bradfordian, if you don't mind me saying. Whereabouts are you based, mate? What's your story? Just quickly.
So, yeah, well, I'm born and bred in Bradford. Moved away when I was 11. So I spent a bit of time in London, in Dubai, and then I've had a family and come back. So, yeah, I'm born and bred. I've followed the Bantams since my dad used to take me home and away religiously and to go to all the reserve games as well. So, yeah, mate, it's part of the blood.
I love it. I love picking up on the accents because we've had it before. Where people have come and like,
I noticed that as well. I was going to ask that question.
I mean, I sound common as bloody muck, don't I? But you sound quite eloquent when you're speaking. It's quite nice to hear a Bradford fan speaking like that. So just picked up on it, mate. I thought I'd ask you.
Yeah, no drama. As I say, it's me and the family have just come back, so it's mate, it's great. I love it. I can go to every home game now, so it's mega.
Yeah, excellent, mate. And that was no disrespect to you two guys, so Labib and Ben. I'm not saying you two speak really common or anything. So his water then in preparation is going to speak at his best English now. So yeah, Ben, I'll come at you, mate.
In terms of Stefan Rupp, I'm probably in the minority where I've never had any issues with him. Really, he's always paid the bills on time. The only time I've ever had a gripe with him, I suppose, is, and I don't know whether this was, you know, Julian Rhodes at the time or Ryan Sparks, was just, I think we judge Stuart McCall and Derek Adams' time a little bit unfairly because there's been a clear difference in budgets available to those managers. So I'd say he's always paid the bills.
I'm sorry, but you're a Derek Adams sympathiser, aren't you, Ben?
But let's be fair, you know, Stuart, let's move away from Derek because I did think Derek was treated harsh.
Come on.
But let's
you know what, I really hope we could go one episode without mentioning Derek Adams.
But my one issue has just been that the bills have always been paid, which is brilliant, but there has been a very up and down in terms of the different conditions different managers have had to work under. So like McCall, in the nicest way, struck me as I'm going to keep paying the bills, but this is a way for me to be able to lower my outlay and still keep everyone happy. The Derek Adams appointment screamed to me that this is a guy that got Morecambe promoted on a shoestring, so I can get him and, you know, give him a top 10 budget and we'll get promoted. He's now realised those two things don't work and he's now gone, I'll get an elite manager and also give one of the biggest budgets. But like I say, the bills have always been paid, so I haven't got a problem.
Ben, I'll ask you about that. Like, for instance, I know a lot of City fans, obviously, me, for example, did not like Derek Adams. Was there any City fan genuinely, when we made that appointment, who went, "This is fucking shit"?
No.
They were a good appointment, and on the point in the
On
budget,
paper.
the budget were decent as well, Ben.
Yeah, but it was what I mean is, where's now Hughes? So this is the thing, and I don't want to change the question, but Hughes is doing a superb job. He is. There's absolutely no disputing that. He's doing a superb job, but he's also working with a completely different budget to what Stuart, had when he was thrown like a lamb to the slaughter, and Derek when it was, we'll give you a decent budget, but it's not a promotion budget in comparison.
It was the second best in the league that he had, wasn't it?
I never quite, but that wasn't what. Look at the pool that we were shopping in compared to the pool we're shopping.
Do you know what?
That's the Mark Hughes pull, isn't it? I think that's the manager's pull. He's pulled those players. Let's be fair. Derek Adams failed. We can't back him.
Oh no, he did. No. Oh no, Derek Adams failed. But what I'm saying is, just like McCall, in effect failed. But look at again Stuart McCall. Look at the job he did when we were in League One, when Rahik was there. Dare I say his name? And we were throwing the money at it. And then little wonder he failed when he was given a shoestring budget to operate on. Football, a manager can make a huge difference. Look at the minor miracle Truman and Sellers worked with those players, but a manager can only make so much difference. There has to be the budget as well.
Ben, I think you've got a fair point here. I actually do, to a certain extent. I absolutely do think you've got a fair point. And obviously, we expected that Stuart, when he came back the last time, that he was going to be able to do the job. And I think you're probably right to a certain extent that he didn't have the financial backing. The one thing I would say is that Ryan Sparks did not give Stuart McCall that 2-year extension.
Right. That was Mr. Rhodes, was it?
I don't know. But that's what
that's a guess.
Ryan said on the Hard Truth podcast the other day that he did not appoint Stuart McCall.
Right. So on that topic, we'll just speak about Sparks before we go on a Derek Adams rabbit hole. What are your opinions on Sparks, Ben, as well?
I think he's absolutely brilliant at the commercial side. Very, very clearly, we've got more commercial partners than I've, ever heard of any football club having. All that frustrates me is, if I'm honest, is when he tries to get involved with the football. So speaking of the Hard Truth podcast, it really got my back up when, he was sort of daring to say, as the chief executive, I found it quite disrespectful, sort of insinuating he could spot players better than Stuart McCall, that he could spot play. That one upset me more than, dare I say the name, Derek Adams. I thought that snippet was really in bad taste. I just think brilliant at the business side. Football, let's be honest, we're not experts. None of us on this, on this show now are experts, but he's no better informed than us. He wasn't really a football fan, was he, prior to getting this job?
Yeah, I understand that he was. However, your point's valid. He's not a previous footballer or anything like that. Labib, ask you, mate, what do you think on everything that we've said so far?
This is probably where I'm going to disagree.
Yes, do it.
Yes, come on.
So, going back to when Rupp took over, we were a League One side pushing for the playoffs. 5 years later, we're in the bottom half of League Two. Right, that's the reality of it. You can big him up as much as you want to, but in 5 years, in 5 consecutive years, we've gone backwards every year. Right, that's a fact. Undisputable, unequivocal. Look at the league tables. 5 years straight, we've gone backwards every year. That, to me, is not a sign of good leadership. or good management. I take on board people saying, "Oh, he's put his hand in his pocket, and he's kind of backing the club," but I'm not convinced he has. Because if you listen to Sparks, he talks about it being a self-sustainable business model, right? He's mentioned that several times. So self-sustainable is using the income that we've got coming in, that you spend it on players that we're bringing into the club. It's not Rupp digging into his own pocket and smashing that money out. We've got a budget that we've created from the commercial deals that Sparks has done, and using that money to leverage in those kind of players. So for me, Sparks doesn't, Rupp doesn't get any credit. It doesn't, right? And that's based upon the facts that we've seen over the last 5 years. The only time I will stand up and praise Rupp is when we're in the Championship, and that means he's taken us forward from the point at which he took over. Right? That's a sign of success for me. At the moment, there is no success to point to.
Do you not think anything's changed this season? Because a lot of people are now on board with this new Mark Hughes roller coaster. Do you not think anything's changed? Do you still think the money's coming from the commercial partners rather than him putting his hand in his pocket? Is that right?
That's my view on it. I don't know the ins and outs of the club. Right? I don't have access to all the finances. I'm only going on what I've seen and read in terms of us being a self-sustainable business model. And that to me speaks of get the money in first, then spend it. Right, and manage your budget. I think Sparks has done incredibly well from a commercial perspective. Again, we talked about Harry Lewis as a player and kind of buying in to the whole kind of club. I think Sparks has done the same thing as well. I think he is fully committed to making the club a success, and he can't be faulted for that, I don't think. So from that perspective, I think he does a good job as a CEO. But I'm not convinced that Rupp has been good for the club.
Do you think we put So, Labib, do you think we put a lot of expectation because of where we've been to have these owners that are going to splash the cash in? What is it that you would expect from ownership out of interest?
Well, okay, if you look at ownership, it's a good question. What I would expect is presence, commitment, kind of that kind of vision, that strategy, that plan. That's what I would expect from leadership and ownership of the business. If you look at any private sector business or organisation, you'll have a leader with a very clear view of this is where I want to be, and you take people along with you. Now, Rupp's conspicuous by his absence. Right, he's hardly ever there. I appreciate he lives in Germany, but I would expect to see him present. I would expect to hear a lot more from him on a much more regular basis. And as I said, if you look at any business that's gone backwards 5 years on the trot, that top person would not still be there.
Do you think football it's changed? Would you not agree that in football the ownership
it has this season? It has this season, and that fully admit that there's a far greater sense of optimism that there is now than there was last season. We seem to be playing better. There's a higher kind of expectation. There's a better optimism. The feeling is all very, very, very positive. But we're only 14 games in. We've not done anything yet. Let's see what happens at the end of this season. Obviously, I want this to be successful. I want this to go up. Of course I do. Everybody does. You want that success. But on track record so far, for me, there's no to shout about yet.
Sorry, my question was, do you think football has changed in regards to ownership? Because you look at pretty much most clubs, I don't think that chairmans nowadays, they're not the chairmans of old that were sat in the office at the ground anymore. People own the club and are as involved to get people to do that work for them, a la Ryan Sparks. When obviously Rupp invested in the club, but he never really, I don't believe, wanted to be that man, and I still don't think he does. Is he wanting to sell the club? Personally, I think he probably does, but is the price tag too hefty? Is the people that are interested that are wanting us to get to that next level before they invest? Are we a club that you'd want to invest in, mate?
Well, I mean, Pete, I've been following City for a long time, right? 45 years I've been watching City play. So this is from the late 70s onwards.
You've seen it all then, good, bad, and the ugly. Yeah?
During that time, we've always been referred to as a sleeping giant. Right? Everyone always calls us the sleeping giant. Right? If you look at Bradford as a city, right, the population of Bradford is over 500,000. Right, it's one of the top 5, top 6 cities in this country, and I think it's criminal that a city this size as a team that's floundering in the bottom division of the Football League. For me, that's my own view. I know there's no correlation. I understand that. You know, if you look at Bournemouth, you know, relatively small city in comparison, they've got teams that are flying high, and so on and so on. There's lots of you know, examples that you can point to that book that particular trend. But for me, there's always been, I think, a saleable club there. The potential that this club have got. Lots and lots of other people have said that. So I think there's definitely a saleable club. In terms of going back to your original question, Adam, about ownership of football these days, there's loads of examples that you can point to where owners are fully invested in that particular club. You know, they talk about it. The guy at Peterborough, Darren McAntony, you know, he's always making himself heard and what he wants to do, what he wants to achieve. The other day, I was listening to a radio phone-in show. We were talking about the energy crisis, and you had Dale Vince from Forest Green Rovers, like him or hate him, but he's always talking about his football club, right?
Yeah.
And these are people that own it. So there's lots of examples that you can point to where people are fully vested into that particular project.
He's a bad example, though. Can't stand him.
Well,
I know what you mean.
But he's done some phenomenal work.
I know what you're saying. I think the Accrington Stanley boss is a good one. He's another example, and he's quite vocal about stuff and matters like that.
Again, for me, my own personal expectation, which might be different to the way of the world, but for me, that's what I want to see. I want to see somebody who's leading the club forward, who's got a plan, who's got a vision, who's got a strategy, and, you know, who wants to take us all with them to where they want to be. And I don't see that from Rob.
No, thank you for that, mate. I think before we go any further into this debate, I think we need to move on a little bit, and we'll sort of on the back of it, we'll speak about the new club crest, badge, whatever you want to call it, KFC logo. So I just want to see what you guys think of that, because I'm sure we all have different views. Chris absolutely loves it, of course he does. But I'll come to Dan.
I've never said that.
He did when it first came out. Like, oh, it's amazing. I love it. Look at him.
Talking absolute rubbish again. Just like the reason when he had a Britney breakdown and shaved his hair off.
Yeah, but it's a choice. Right, Dan, I'm going to come to you first, mate, on this new badge. Yeah. What are your thoughts on it? Just summarise your thoughts, please.
When I first saw it, initial reaction was, didn't like it at all. It did grow on me, but do you know what? When I compare it to what we've got now, I still prefer what we have. I totally get it. I'm happy for it to change. I think we need the stripes in there. Definitely. That was I did the online, recommendations. And I said that was one thing I wanted. I wanted the stripes back in. I get it. It needs changing. I don't think the badge they came up with, or the crest, whatever you want to call it, I don't think that was right. It just didn't look right to me. I prefer what we have, but it's going to change, but I don't think they've got it quite right yet.
Oh, yeah, with the large majority that they said that wanted to change it, the 90 fans. Anyway, Ben, I'm going to come to you. Your summary on the badge. Oh, don't pull faces, Chris. We'll come to you in a minute. Ben.
I don't like the one that they proposed at all, and for me, it was as simple as just look at the current one and like what Norwich ended up doing, just modernise literally as simple as I could imagine you could find someone very quickly who's good on Photoshop, who in an hour for free could modernise it and get rid of all of those problems that detailed supporters pack detailed. What I'd also say is not to try to change the question, is I just didn't understand the financial the use of club money to do that. We don't own our own stadium, we don't own our own training ground, we're not a brand, we're not Paris Saint-Germain, we're not Man City. We're supported, we're the people who buy a woolly hat from the club shop are going to buy it regardless. It's not like people that buy a PSG hat, even though they've never watched PSG. We're a football club for the people of Bradford, not a brand.
Right, I get it, and I'm with you. The necessity of it, I guess, is it necessary to change it?
No.
I'm with you. What you've just said there, can't believe I'm saying these words, Ben, but I totally agree with you there. I'm gonna come to Labib on it as well, because he's actually modelling the crest on his top today. I don't know if you can show us it, Labib.
Yeah. I think I'm probably in alignment with the majority of views, is that it does need modernising, right? Now, when you talk about a club and you talk about the presence, it is different to what it was 30 years ago. You know, we've got social media, we've got iFollow, we've got, you know, so much branding that goes off. That's not to say the club is a brand, it's not, but a representation of the club now needs to be a much higher profile than what it has been in the past. So I understand the need to modernise it. Good, clean image. Didn't particularly like the image of the Bantam, and I kind of tweeted half jokingly that we should have something that looks a little bit more fearsome. If you look at like something like the Albania crest, I know it's an eagle, but you know, you've got like a double-headed eagle that looks a little bit fearsome. You've got the Germany eagle, so you've got Crystal Palace kind of logo where you've got an eagle that's in action. I think having a more kind of fearsome-looking Bantam, that would be my preference. But I can understand the need to modernise it. Didn't particularly like it. I do like the crest that we've got now, but there's a lot of elements associated with what we've got now, you know, which is on there. When you try and just clean it, I can understand it's a bit of a challenge. You're always going to upset somebody, I think, when you modernise anything. We've had it 30 years now.
So you're in the angry cock. I mean, angry bantam
group. Angry bantam group. Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me.
I want an angry bantam.
Everyone wants an angry bantam. I don't see like it's not raising its claw. It's not angry enough. Like,
I want an angry bantam, double-headed angry bantam.
I like it. Yeah, so like a hybrid KFC angry bantam. We've got the KFC logo, but now I want the actual KFC chickens with the double heads. Chris, you've been shaking your head. You've been pulling faces. You've been smiling.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've been really good for a change. But before we start this, I'm just going to ask you, Adam. Did you vote for the boar to change the mascot?
Yeah, I did originally.
Right. So if we'd have gone for the boar, then that badge would have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I would say as well, on point of that as well, is that only 3,000 people actually filled out those documents or the votes or whatever. If it was such a massive deal for Bradford people, then why have we not had more than 3,000 people?
You sound like a Tory MP, you know.
No, I don't. I'm not Billy Bantam. But also, we're talking about kind of people talking about Photoshops and things like that. We're all amateurs on this. We don't know what goes into that. I get that. I understand that. I definitely don't think it's cost that much money to actually look at whether we change our identity. You look at brands such as Adidas and Nike, whatsoever. They all have changed their branding. They're all become simple. I think personally, for me, I don't think that badge is the right one, but I think we need to move forwards if we want to be.
Want to be what? Want to be what? What do you want to be? We're a League Two football team. Why does the badge matter that much? Tell me.
Yeah, but how many people talk about us being a League Two team when you're looking on Sky Sports News, for instance, and you see the fixtures, and you'll see our badge is tiny because nobody else can do anything with it.
So people are saying, "Oh, that badge is rubbish. They must be a League Two team." Is that right?
But no, I don't think that's the case. I think it's the case that no. What I mean is that it's the case of we need to change the identity. I mean, anybody who says that Bantam on the top of the badge is fantastic is lying. Do you know what the worst thing is? And I mentioned this on the space as well, is the little bit of you can see apparently it's the feet are standing up like a Bantam. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, that's my toothpen.
You're talking shite. It's pointless. I mean, what is the point? Yeah, you are, because you're on about a piece of grass. You're upset by a little piece of grass that's underneath the chicken. Who
No,
cares?
it's not underneath the grit. It's not even that. It's actually apparently the foot to say that it's coming to Bantam.
Saying we need to change it to take ourselves seriously. I don't get that argument. Why? Why is it necessary? What is,
so I would say, well, obviously that badge was created. I think it was 1991,
right?
91, 92.
Good year.
Do you know what? There's been some good years, but there's been some absolutely terrible times in that time frame. You've got to look at the like for instance, the last, we've gone from in that time we've gone up from Division 2 to the old Championship. We've gone to the Premiership. We've gone all the way down again. We've gone up a little bit. We've gone down again. I just feel that for me, we just need a change, and that's my personal opinion.
But because it's wrong. So I would say that 60 to 70%, maybe 60% of our key history is with this badge. When you look at it, like the last sort of 20.
But you're making it out as if the badge has been around forever. And like I said, and I'll go back to my previous point, was where you said, "Oh, I'd go for the boar again." So you obviously don't feel that connected to the badge.
I do, but I just like the boar better.
But so if we'd have gone for the boar, would you have then appreciated us changing it?
It depends if it looked like a packet of pork scratchings when they put the badge out. Do you know what I mean?
You know what I mean? But this is it. But this is the great thing about City fans, and this is the great thing about having these kind of conversations, is that 3,000 people voted. That's it. Is it such a big
You're being
issue?
a politician. You're being a politician.
One thing I would say is you look at the badges over the years, they've all been vastly different, haven't they? Like,
absolutely,
they've changed dramatically. They haven't tweaked them; they've changed dramatically. So, I think there is a part of the current badge which we just love and we don't want to lose because we hold so much kind of good memories with it. For me, I agree. I think Ben mentioned it. Just modernize what we've got and keep that identity, because I think we all love it, because we've had some really great times in the last 20 years, and I think we've grown to love it.
Dan, when I'll come to you. So when we win a game, do you look at the badge and go, "Wow, I'm so proud of that," or is it the football team that you look at?
Yeah, definitely I don't look at the badge and think, "Wow, thank God we got this badge."
What stupid! What are you on about?
But you don't think about the badge, do you? You don't think about the badge when we win those games. You don't think about that, is what I'm trying to say.
But at the point you're on about, no, but I guess that you are proud to wear that badge when you go out and about, maybe, or when you go into games. Maybe that's more the point, isn't it? Are you proud of it as a crest? Or does it not matter that much?
I think when you go into that club shop to buy merchandise, you're kind of buying the badge, really, aren't you? Because you think you were wearing a pink Bradford City beanie the other day, and it was a good point. You wouldn't have worn that if you didn't have the crest on, would you?
Yeah, true.
Get it on. On.
I can't, honestly. Dogs ripped it to bits. I put a tweet out.
But that is what you buy, isn't it? If you buy a golf ball with Bradford City, you're basically buying the crest.
Yeah.
You're
so
right.
It does hold a lot of identity. And
there you go. So Chris agrees with me now. He's changing his mind again.
But the argument is, though, if it had a different badge on it, you'd still buy it.
You probably would.
But that's why I don't get the need to invest all of that money in it. Let's be honest, if we're looking at it from a fashion point of view, claret and amber, I love our colours. I love that when you turn the Football League show on, or whatever it's called these days, you could be stood 100 miles from the TV and you'd be able to tell it's Bradford City versus someone. Okay, we've got that's truly unique, but actually I bet the youth of today, these people that Ryan Sparks is trying to appeal to, look at a claret and amber and go, I'm not wearing a claret and amber tracksuit.
But Ben, I would ask you why you think it's going to cost so much money.
Because it's an expense.
You think it's going to cost?
I do not know, but let's even go on the cautious side. I'd say minimum, £5,000-10,000 just to do all the stuff in the stadium. You just think of every single board that has got that logo on.
Ben, you're worrying about £5,000 to £10,000, and the amount of.
That's
I'm saying because I don't want someone coming back to me going, "Where are you plucking these figures from?" I'm a school teacher, not a business person. But I am saying, I would go as far as saying, if I was to put a rough figure on, I'm thinking £100,000 probably to change everything in our ground correctly. And you're telling me that last season, when we're signing players like Nathan Delfonso, we've got 100 grand to chuck away. I really resent. I think hard work, not to sound like Brian Clough, hard-working Bradford City fans want money spending on the grass.
No, and I completely get where you're coming from. However, I would say also that we could sign in the summer another Nathan Delfonso, who absolutely was terrible and would have cost more money than to actually change the branding.
I just simply would prefer the money to be spent on the football. The badge at the moment isn't a priority. I'd understand it more if we were in the Championship or the Premier League and on that crest of we're going to try take this club to the next level. Because at the moment, in the nice way, League One and League Two, we're not commercially attractive to anyone other than local business. And we're very lucky that as a proud city, that our local businesses back us. Our business, JCT 600 don't back us to make money. They back us because they're proud of their Bradford roots. You look at all of these commercial partners. What do they all have in common? All local businesses where it's beneficial to them as much as it is to us. When you're in the Championship, in the Premier League, and you want to get Nike to make your kit and you want to get XYZ, that's when you need to do these things. League One and League Two is not the time, in my view.
Right. Can we just put that whole segment out that is just done there, Chris? And that can be the episode.
I was just going to say what you're going to say. Phenomenal. That was so. Do you know what? That was. I love that. I love that. Do you know the pride of Bradford? That was phenomenal. Honestly,
that was spot on.
Yeah, bang on. And do you know what? We're going to leave it at that because you're right and everybody else is wrong. So we're going to move on to another subject where I want to hear your views on it. I don't know out of you guys who are season ticket holders, who goes to home games.
Yeah.
But we're going to speak about the stadium atmosphere at home games. Now, let's be honest, it's been poor. We've got 16,000, 17,000 people in there every week. You've got an atmosphere section in the northwest corner. You've got the guys in the Cop. You've got the family stand, Midland Road, whatever. Our fans are poor at home. Why is that? What is the problem, guys? Labib, I'll come to you first on this one, mate.
Yeah, absolutely agree. We have got, I think, quite a poor home atmosphere. I sit in the Midland Road, and very rarely do people kind of stand up and join in with the chanting. Occasionally, you get a few rounds of Mark Hughes, Bradford Army, and people kind of clap along to that. But otherwise, it's just deathly quiet. This whole kind of battle might be the wrong word, but this kind of situation that we've got with Northwest Corner and kind of the Cop, it'd just be good to unite them, I think, rather than have two separate kind of factions at there. I mean, because I'm in the Midland Road, I'm not too far away from the away end, and obviously the last home game at Stockport, they had a really good following, and they just created a brilliant atmosphere all the way throughout the game. And quite often, the away fans, even not in that big a number, will talk about Valley Parade being a library, and I think it is most of the time. It's far too quiet for such a big stadium. That place should be rocking. It really should. And when it does, it just makes a phenomenal noise, and that'll intimidate any away team. I just wish we could do that week in, week out.
Do you think? Because obviously we talk about being proud Bradfordians, and we're quite vocal on Twitter, and we're vocal in the pub and whatever else, wherever we go, about supporting this team. And on away days this season, I spoke about this earlier, that we've been pretty good away. But what is the issue at home? Is it just a disconnection between one stand starting a song with a drum and then the other stand starting a separate song and not having that? Is it just pettiness like that? Is that the issue, or is it more?
I don't think it is. I think when you look at away games, you get a certain type of fan, don't you, that goes to away games, and that type of fan tends to sing along and join in. As we said, I've been to about 4 away games, been good atmospheres every time. In the away end, lots of noise. Salford was brilliant. Grimsby was pretty good. Packed out, people joining in, singing, chanting, all of that. And you just don't get that at home games. So maybe if you have a catalyst like the COP, the K block as it used to be, when we had that kind of when they had the flags going, you remember a couple of years ago, we were really concentrating on the K block and it looked brilliant. And now that it's kind of just dispersed into the northwest corner, it's not as effective, I don't think. So maybe if you have all of those guys together, that might act as a bit of a catalyst for everyone else to kind of join in. Don't know.
Fair point, mate. I mean, for me, for the starters, get that bloody drum and throw it into a skip on Midland Road. I just can't stand a drum at a home game. I think it's just every away game. I don't know about Grimsby, Libby, because you went. Did they have a drum at that game?
I don't think we did. No, if we did, I certainly didn't hear it. Yeah.
They didn't at Tranmere, I don't think, and Salford, and the atmosphere was so much better because the problem that I see is, and I'll come to you guys in a minute on this, but the drum, they start a rhythm with it, and they're not really that loud singing with it, and then the cop starts from it, and then they start drumming again, and it just gives me a bloody headache, personally. I just wish they'd get rid of it. I could be wrong there. Some people might love it. I know kids like it, don't they, and stuff like that, but it's not a partisan atmosphere. Why do we need a drum? Why don't we just naturally, start songs? Ben, thoughts?
I think it's 2 things. I'm going to sound like I'm making excuses for our fans. I think not having fans in the TL Dallas stand doesn't help. And I also think what doesn't help as well is how small most of the followings are in League Two. So like Stockport, even though it's probably, our worst performance, was actually a good atmosphere because their fans make us raise our game. It's very easy to, when it's a dull game, and Stevenage have brought 50 fans to be quiet for 20 minutes, isn't it? Whereas Stockport, when we were in the trenches, because their fans are singing for the whole 90 minutes, the atmosphere was good.
But I don't think we responded to that. I don't personally think at Stockport that we were decent, personally.
Yeah, and that's opinion. But I think, in short, that's the thing that I always notice is it's so much more enjoyable when we play, teams that bring support. Even go to like the Papa John's Sheffield Wednesday, even though there was barely any fans that night, cracking atmosphere. But because they're singing all game, we then sing all game.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that was probably the best atmosphere this season, I think, at home. We had only the lower tier, and everybody was singing along and what have you. Maybe that's it because you're in more of a an enclosed space. Everybody's singing rather than just it's all being disjointed. But I feel like you're making excuses, mate, for fans. We're just not good enough at home. We're not loud enough. We're not proud enough, and we need to be. And that is the 12th man that this team needs, I think, to get them over the line this season. And they're just not getting it. What we can do about it, who knows? It needs to be a massive effort.
I just think, sorry, Adam, I just think that it's a case of that. I mean, nobody talks about this, and they don't, and I'm going to talk about it. There just seems to be a battle between the northwest corner and the COP. And the thing is, we should be working together, but there seems to be just a division between the two of them. And I just genuinely would like us all to work together and understand that we want the same thing, but there just seems to be a battle. What do you think to that?
I'll come to Dan.
I sit in the northwest corner, so I'm right next to that fucking drum, and it does do your head in. but it does, certainly where I'm sat anyway, it does create a bit of noise. But what I can clearly hear is the copper singing one thing and we're singing something else. Every club has a singing section, and they keep them together for that exact reason. They start the whole thing off. And, when Valley Parade is rocking, we all know it's rocking, and it's just not happening enough. And Ben stole my thunder a little bit, but again, you're spot on. When teams bring 150 to Valley Parade, You know, you don't get that kind of atmosphere because, you know, they're not creating any noise. We start off creating a bit of noise, but then it fades because you got nothing going back. The away days are the best because we take 1,000 and it's a cracking atmosphere because we're giving it there, we're getting it back, and it creates that kind of football atmosphere we all love. But when you've got 150 from Crew, I mean, it's shit because it's quiet. But reuniting, you're right. There's a problem somewhere, isn't there? The COP and the Northwest. What is that?
So
why are they
the
not
COP,
just saying, let's sit together?
well, the COP has always been, well, not always, but for the majority of the time, has always been where chants are started, where it's all going on. And I think that people think that these young lads are trying to not steal a thunder a little bit, but trying to be a bit different, partisan, and all that kind of stuff. And I think it probably irks people. I'm not saying this is my opinion, but that's what I gather when I look at tweets. And they're like, they want to get their own drum now in the COP again, and that's just ridiculous. So the less drums, the better. They'll be getting percussion next and all sorts. But I don't know.
The lads who were in the northwest corner came from K Block. Is that right?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
So they were in the COP.
The flags, apparently. I think people were stealing the stuff.
Because, I mean, literally, we turned up to our seats one day, and all of a sudden, it was the northwest corner as we know it now. They literally just arrived and took over.
Oh, so you were in there before? You were in there before, the northwest corner?
We were all in there before, been in there for like the last 5 or 6 seasons.
Family day out of the football, ruined by a big drum.
I literally sat there with my old man, and he was like, what the fuck's going on? We're surrounded by drums and flags. Where's, you know, people we've been sat with for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But
Labib,
I don't understand why they don't.
Labib, you were wanting to come in. What were you going to say, mate?
The whole thing about creating noise is, and this might be stating the obvious, but I think we very, very much react to the football that's on the pitch.
Yeah.
Right? And I think if it's going badly, generally, we're really relatively quiet. We make the noise when it's going well. Now, if you look at in its truest form, support is there through the good times and the bad times. And the argument is we become more vocal, get behind the team, spurs them on to victory. That's what we all want. But I think generally when it, like I said in Stockport, I think when it was a shocking game for us, I thought we were very, very quiet and we responded to the action on the pitch. And I think typically that's what we do, especially at home. When we're not playing well, we go quiet.
But that's what we need to stop, innit? We need to give it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's how we do it, and it's hard as a collective, as a group like us, to say it. We can sit there and say all we want, but it's got to come from the stands on it. And I think for starters, again, 4th time I've said this today, but get rid of the bloody drum and just unite everybody. I think that northwest corner, I've got to say that the idea of it is brilliant because it kind of bridges the gap between the big family stand and the COP. But like I say, for years and years, the COP has always been where chants have started. So you're trying to change something that's not particularly broken. It just feels totally disjointed, and that seems to be a bit of a common denominator to me. I don't know if I'm right.
What's your thoughts, mate?
Just let Labib finish there, mate. We're going to respond quickly. Hold on.
I take on board what you're saying, Adam, about the COP, generally where the noise starts. But if I can just take you back to the olden days, I started off standing in the Bradford end.
Yeah.
It was a tiny little shed back in those days. This is how long ago it was. I remember standing in there watching us beat Liverpool in the old League Cup, as it was.
Yeah.
Bobby Campbell scoring. And that's where all the noise generated from.
It bounces off, doesn't it, as well? Even now, it'd be good in that.
In those days, that's where all the noise came from. The COP was quiet. All the singing came from the Bradford end. And then obviously, the whole kind of ground redeveloped and the COP became the kind of where all the noise generated from. And that's where that's typically where it does come from. But I think if we combine northwest corner noise and the kind of K block noise together, I think that'll just make it better. That's my view on it.
We all want the same thing, don't we, in a good atmosphere, and it's just how we get there. Ben, I'll just let you finish on that one, mate.
No, I agree with the vast majority of what's been said. Yeah, I think the thing is as well, get out of this league and the atmosphere will be a lot better. When we're suddenly back to playing, like you look at the top end of League One, and it's just incredible, isn't it? Like the top half of League One, is like ex-Premier League from top to bottom, isn't it? It's amazing how bad League Two is in comparison to League One. Like, you know, I know we really want to get to the Championship, really want to even get to the Premier League, some of us, but just being in League One would be a damn sight better for atmosphere.
Yeah. It's frightening though, isn't it? The top end, like
Yeah.
you just mentioned, when you look at it, it's crazy. You know, your Sheffield Wednesdays in there, Derbies, Ipswiches, and you know, historically big teams that are battling out in there. And when we get up there, it's like we're probably going to be stuck in there for ages, but it's miles better than where we are in it. And
give us something to moan about again.
Yeah, that's what we want, isn't it? That's what this has been all about.